Hey guys, I'm Dov, and today I'm back with more Total War Warhammer 2 Early Access Hunter and the Beast action. Today, I've got a very special video for you. So I've got a whole bunch of replays that I need to cast, and because Creative Assembly is kind of actively updating things as the Early Access period is ongoing, I don't really want to lose these replays to getting desynced, because they are all pretty fun and worth showing, I believe. So, here's what we're going to do. We're going to go through a massive marathon cast today and just go through a whole bunch of games. I've got 22 games to show you guys, so strap yourselves in. This is going to be a long one. You might want to grab some popcorn. If you need to watch this in chunks, that is totally fine, but I wanted to bring this to you so that you guys who like as many battles as you can get as many battles as you can get, right? So anyway, this is HDS taking Lizardmen against my Skaven. I wanted to see Jezzails did get nerfed. The Natty Boobo sharpshooters in particular cost more. All Jezzails have longer reload time and shorter range, so I wanted to see how much that would affect this matchup. We've got some sword and board vermin, as well as the Council Guard, a whole bunch of slave slingers, and some Skaven slaves up front. And yeah, a couple rat ogres, Lord Scroll leading the way. For the Lizardmen, we've got a Rev Crystal here, Legion of Chocolates providing that sweet physical resistance, which is great for the time being. Red Crested Skinks as well, Skink Cohort up front. Over here on the side, we've also got some Razordon Hunting Packs, Red Crested Skinks, and Sacred Croxigores. Skink Priest, Lore of Beasts over there, and it looks like some more Sacred Croxies and the MX Barbs over on the side. So, right off the bat, the engagement is going to be getting underway. If we kind of take an overarching look here, you can see Storm Vermin getting in the front line. Despite the missile resistance buff, this Bastildon is still getting taken out. And similar to what you guys may have seen in the Coast versus Lizardmen game I played the other day, the Rev Crystal is just, I think, a bit too tough to protect, as much as it can be a good idea here. The Sacred Croxigores, though, going to rush in with fist weapons out, start to just pummel these rat ogres in a heavy-duty slugging match. There's no question that the Croxigores, or the Boxigores as I like to call them, absolutely. Oh man, did you guys see that shoulder drop he just did? That was so cool. Anyway, they're going to be putting a pounding on this front line. You know, the Storm Vermin had been doing well against the Red Crest, but we've got a Manticore summon now. In the back line, you can see I don't have a ton of resources to protect, and HDS is going to do a great job getting in here with these MX Barbs. They do poison damage, which I don't think is the best, like, special ability, but they're going to be able to get in here and get some pretty good work done in melee, countercharging with the Rat Ogres there. Meanwhile, here, using the Red Crest and the Sacred Croxigores together is very nice. Does a ton of armor piercing. You can see those Storm Vermin getting beat up pretty badly there. Manticore also coming in the back line here, but I do have a good situation here where the Council Guard are holding out with Lord Skrolk, and we've also got, you know, some Rat Ogres protecting as well. The Croxigore Ancient took quite a bit of damage, so, well, I say quite a bit. It took a little bit of damage, so he's going to have to pull back. Just rely on some magic and other stuff to get the work done here, but Sacred Croxigores pushing through. The big old Ancient himself just kind of hanging back for now. Not really getting engaged there, but you can see I'm having some issues protecting my Jezzails because of that shorter range. These Legion of Chalk were able to get through. Pharaoh Manticore providing a nice little tear route, but I am going to get some of the Rat Ogres in a position to try and bail them out if I can. Over here, these Sacred Croxigores still fighting. This is the one thing about Sword and Board Vermin, though. They do have pretty good melee defense. They'll be able to hold out here, at least for some time. Even if they aren't necessarily going to win that matchup, they at least still did beat up the Red Crests at the very least. But we do still have some Jezzails online. You can see I've been able to get a couple units here, Natty Boobos, plus one more. Still here, able to provide some nice Overwatch fire, and we're going to be shooting at the Razordon Hunting Packs. I was maybe a little bit overestimating the actual damage output that they could do, but it's mostly the mobility aspect that I wanted to get rid of. Same thing with the MX Barbs here in the back. Trying to get rid of the mobility is more important right now, and this is one of the main things they're changing in the patch that's coming tomorrow. So by this weekend, hopefully, Razordon Hunting Packs will be a little bit better with their ranged attacks. Right now, their ranged attacks don't seem to do very much damage at all, and you guys may have seen there was, I think, just the replay that Turin posted of myself playing Chaos versus his Lizardmen, where they did okay. That's pretty much the only game where I've seen them remotely be okay, and even the campaign players content creators have been complaining that they are underpowered. So that's what's getting changed tomorrow. That's why I'm showing these replays. But you can see here that the damage, the missile damage, is just really almost nothing. Really, they've been getting most of their work done in melee so far. That being said, balance power still very close. We've got another Manticore dropping down here, and Skrulk's getting beat up a little bit by some of these Sacred Crocsgores, but thankfully the Council Guard, Unbreakable, Storm Vermin, really good stats. They are going to be excellent in this matchup as always, and they're going to match up well versus these Sacred Crocsgores here. And I will point out one thing as well with the summoning units. You will notice the closer the summoned units get to their end of the regeneration timer, the actual summon effect that's around them will change. And like when it's at that orange level, that means they're relatively close to expiring. Just a nice little quality of life change that I had noticed as well. But yeah, you can see the Jezzail's focusing on the Crocsgore Ancient here as he gets a little bit caught up here trying to take out Skrulk and the Council Guard. Natty Boobos are able to get secure, get into a position to fire. Meanwhile here, Sacred Crocsgores grinding through the rest of these Rat Ogres, and the summon, I'm just continuing to throw summons at the Legion of Chakwa here to try and keep them bogged down, but the Sacred Boxagores definitely doing a great job here. They're going to bum rush these Rat Ogres who are pinned in by the Amexon Barbs, and it's just going to be a monster mash. Absolutely heavy slugging match, but I definitely think that the Sacred Boxagores will get the better of that engagement, although Rat Ogres will still do some decent damage in return. So yeah, at this point things are starting to pull a little bit ahead for me as the Crocsgore Ancients in a tough situation here, getting crossfired from multiple different units of Jezzails. Even though the Jezzails were nerfed, and I definitely felt that nerf in this match, you know, we are still able to pull ahead here in kind of a late game situation. Lizardmen just starting to run out of steam a little bit, and although the the Amexon Barbs here did a good job in the back line, the other unit of Razordons didn't really do a whole lot. The Sacred Boxagores also got some really good work done against, you know, Storm Vermin and more, but because Skaven still just have so much attrition, I was able to pull out a win here. And I will point out that I did forget to bring Liber Bubonicus or Rod of Corruption on Lord Skrulk, and obviously Liber Bubonicus would have made a big difference in this match, especially finishing off this Crocsgore Ancient earlier on, and also casting it on units of Sacred Crocsgores would also do a ton of damage and be quite good value as well. But yeah, as it is, we're going to go ahead and fast forward through this late game, as we do have a few replays to get through today, and it is just a matter of grinding through those last few Lizardmen units that have solid leadership, including the Skink Priest, of course. But yeah, unfortunately, just not quite enough at the end of the day. This battle was definitely closer than, you know, this matchup has been previously. And since this battle, you know, both myself and HDS have had some more time to play. This was one of the earlier battles that we played. And I definitely think, you know, given a couple things, you know, obviously Liber Bubonicus would change things a little bit. But on the flip side, for HDS's Lizardman build, if you were to take Gorok, as we know, he's quite good against Coast. I'd imagine he'd be really good in this situation as well. And maybe trade out the, I don't know, I almost like the Amexon Barbs here, though, to go after things like Jezzails and the poison damage. Once the missile damage gets buffed, I think they might actually be pretty decent here. But I might cut the other Razordon hunting pack and maybe just bring, it's tough to say. I really like the Lore of Beasts for the Manticore summon, but I might just bring more, for the same price, maybe a unit of Cold One Riders, or maybe, honestly, Salamanders would be pretty good, because a lot of the large targets for Skaven are relatively low armor, including things like Rat Ogres, or maybe you just bring some Blowpipes, just a couple units of Skink Skirmishers to provide some Overwatch fire and some additional poison. Let's go on to the next replay. Alright, and here we are in the next battle, me against HDS. Once again, this time it's going to be Lizardmen versus the Dark Elves. So I've got NAKAI here leading the way, a couple of Sacred Boxagores, a Feral Carnosaur, got some Skink cohorts scattered around as well, some Saurus Warriors, and some Red Crests, including the cohort of Sotek. A couple of Skink Skirmishers. For the Dark Elves, we've got MALEKTIH here, a couple units of Harpies as well. Some Dread Spears, some Cold One Knights, more Dread Spears, a couple units of Shades, and more Harpies and Cold One Knights out to the flanks. So yeah, my idea here is that the Wind Blast is going to be able to kill the Shades to then protect the Crocsgores. We can use them to take down some of the heavy units here, but let's see how the engagement plays out. You can see we're going to kind of rush across here. I honestly probably should have just pushed up and around with those Skinks, but we are going to get an engagement underway here. Red Crest matched up against Dread Spears, And yeah, you can see Malekith tries to drop down on top of these skink skirmishers who are firing at these harpies here. We are going to sort of bring over the Broxigor, the bro Croxigor, yeah, the Broxigors, the Boxigors, Fistigors, Rock'em Sock'em Crocodiles, whatever you want to call them, whatever makes you happy. Certainly any of those names would be applicable. They are going to come over here and start to get some work done. Meanwhile, the melee engagement getting underway over here. Cohort of Sotek will match up okay against Blades of the Blood Queen, but over here I'm blobbing up a little bit here. You can see Saurus Warriors getting into the Hellebroni. Those Cold One Knights also getting a pretty decent charge as well. And my goal was to hopefully get back and try and occupy these shades a little bit. But so far so good. We're able to terrify away some harpies, and oh man, here it comes. The box scores. NAKAI himself with his awesome charge animation going to get in here and just wreck these Cold One Dread Knights. Super, super cool charge animations. Absolutely love it. And yeah, they are going to get the damage in. You can see a beautiful breath attack actually kills mostly Dread Spears there, which is great by me. Unfortunately, I did try and get a Wind Blast out here, but it didn't quite make good enough contact. And now Malekith, understanding the danger, is going to come get this Skink Priest, and he is exposed. I do have my heavies coming in to try and bail him out here, but we're not going to be able to get him in time before he gets terrified, which is pretty unfortunate. I really needed that magic like right at this moment, because all of my heavies are rushing in right now, and these shades are completely unimpeded. There's also a free unit of Cold One Knights to come in and screen here, so a really nice play from HDS. Going to catch up a lot of my units, and you can see we are taking significant damage as well. Looks like a Soul Stealer being popped as well, just to add up all the damage, and because of the Primal Roar and Rage that I had popped, I'm not able to issue any different attack orders. So even though those Cold One Knights just got absolutely shredded, we're not going to be able to really follow up too efficiently here, and NAKAI himself is about to take a couple of devastating volleys, just absolutely ripping him to pieces. Unfortunately, a big mistake by me, and despite his cool charge animation, he is going to get routed off by those harpies. So you can see immediately when he took that damage that that balance of power twisted pretty quickly. And over here you can see the Cold One Knights enraging into some skinks. That's fine. We are going to try and push through and at least make it respectable. The Croc scores will get through and actually get some damage done on these shades. You can see Malekith throwing down another breath attack there in the distance. And yeah, honestly, the box scores get in here. They're able to get some good damage done. I love their animations, for the record. Just absolutely destroying those shades. This other unit, though, providing some nice crossfire, so we're going to go try and get on them with another unit. But, I mean, at this point, Malekith drops down to try and fight the Carnosaur, so they're going to get some matched combat animations, because there is actually matched combat animations here. Oh, yeah. Oh yeah, so that's pretty neat. And it looks like we're throwing a Harmonic Convergence there on the Feral Carnosaur just to make sure that he can actually get some work on Malekith. There's, I guess, a small chance if I could kill Malekith and then, like, come back, re-engage, and rout off the rest of these troops. Maybe I could come back. It would require me killing Malekith, though, so we'll see. The Carnosaur is going to give it his best shot. Meanwhile, the Boxigors have dealt with the unit of Shades. It sort of shows you what could have been done earlier if I was a little more on top of my micro. And, of course, these Harpies are going to be able to chase off NAKAI. Not really a lot I can do about that, unfortunately. But the Skink Skirmishers do come in. The Skinks, regular Skinks occupying from one side, Skink Skirmishers shooting the Shades from the other side, at least getting some damage in. But, yeah, unfortunately, just the early losses there were a little bit too much. I definitely had the tools that I needed to. I just didn't quite play it correctly. But, yeah, you can see the Feral Carnosaur, even in this late game, is still a pretty good match for Malekith. I just think I was a little bit... I just didn't take this engagement over here quite right. I should have probably waited to engage my melee forces, honestly, and just, you know, get this unit of Cold One Knights isolated, and once they're gone, then bring everything in all at once. Because I had enough units that if I had waited to engage with, like, my Skinks and Saurus, that I could have probably wrapped around and at the very least pushed these Shades away with a couple units of Skinks, or interrupted them from firing, you know, while my heavies got in and put a heavy beating on some of these other units. But of course, Blades of the Blood Queen still fighting. They're going to give Malekith some physical resistance here. And you can see, though, that the Carnosaur has been able to pretty much bring this fight back, and that's the only thing that's really holding this game at this point. But like I said, it just kind of shows you what could have been done earlier if I had been a little bit more on point with my infantry micro. But very well played to HDS. He certainly had some really, really nice plays there. And yeah, Blades of the Blood Queen actually going to get terrified there as they get... the Skink cohort chasing them away. But yeah, this Soul Stealer right here is going to finish things off as MALEKTIH gets a little bit of healing and some direct damage on the Feral Carnosaur and will break its leadership. So unfortunately a loss for the Lizardmen, but I definitely think I had the right build there. I just didn't play it correctly. Alternately, you could, if you wanted to, instead of taking the Skink Priest Lore of Heavens, you could of course take Lore of Beasts. Manticore's great for disrupting a backline. It's a little bit vulnerable, but I wanted to go for the Heavens instead. I didn't have Roiling Skies though, the Lore attribute, which would have been pretty nice to have, I guess, against MALEKTIH, but still, at the end of the day, Feral Carnosaur did great. Box scores could have done a little bit better, as with NAKAI, but yeah, that was more up to my play than anything else. Very well played to HDS. Sasaurus did okay. There were definitely some bright spots, but let's go ahead and move on to the next replay. Alright, now, I've got this one paused here just because Orion has Vanguard, and... Alright. Alright, I've got this one paused here because, yeah, Orion now has Vanguard. That's a neat change. We're taking him against HDS once again. Lizardmen going to be leading the way. Orion here, challenging NAKAI directly. We've also got Wild Riders, of course, Wild Hunters of Kurnos. I also want to just quickly, we're going to pop it in slow motion. There were a couple changes to the Wood Elves that I wanted to highlight. Wild Hunters of Kurnos no longer have Guardian. Instead, they have anti-large bonus of 13, so this is great for the Wood Elves, actually. This is going to help, particularly the Bretonnian matchup, quite a bit. You see they also have magic attacks. Their spears are now glowing, so yeah, magic attacks, I don't know, they might have had magic attacks before, but plus 13 bonus versus large means they are going to be decent at, you know, rear charging stuff like Grail Knights. We're going to pop Horn of the Wild Hunt on all three, just to take a look at the rest of the build before the fun begins. We've got 2 War Dancers, 2 Dryads, a couple of Eternal Guard, we've got a Branch Wraith, and of course Orion for Lizardmen, NAKAI, we've got Skink Priest, Lore of Beasts, Legion of Chakwa, Skink Cohort with Javs, lots of Skinks. You've even got a Razor Dawn Hunting Pack here, Saurus Warriors with Shields, Pox Cohort, Amexon Bars, more Hunting Packs, and yeah. Let's get to the fun part, though. This charge is just going to absolutely devastate these Skinks as they do try and throw their precursor volleys, get some decent damage in, but look at that charge damage, man. More than half HP on that far side unit just from the Horn of the Wild Hunt there. And, of course, Orion himself being an absolute Chad in combat and at range. He's issuing the challenge. NAKAI responds, and oh, man, a nice riposte there on the charge from Orion actually knocks NAKAI completely off his feet. He celebrates by running some Skinks over, and now the duel is going to get underway properly. I say duel. This is in fact not a fair fight whatsoever, because you can see the hail of arrows coming in here that is going to not only stagger NAKAI, of course, but damage him significantly as well. So yeah, Orion definitely going to get the better of this situation as NAKAI is already starting to take quite a bit of damage, but yeah, he did just knock Orion down there. A little bit of a body blow. Man, I feel like an MMA commentator right now. But anyway, Manticore summon on the Wood Elf side. If you take a look at the overarching look, you can see War Dancer's going to charge in here. Legion of Chakwa taking some damage from those Dryads. Not a lot, but that Hounds of Gibson actually does okay going through those War Dancers there. They obviously will cut through those Skinks relatively quickly, but going to issue another charge over here. And the Razor Dawns are going to fire in. They're not doing a whole lot, but a really nice, actually not a very nice Penumbral Pendulum at all. Looks like that was a pretty hard miss. You can see how little damage the Razor Dawns are doing. Again, this hopefully will be different by the time you guys are seeing this live this weekend, but hey. War Dancers are cutting through Skinks here. The Legion of Chakwa holding out okay, but they're not doing the best. NAKAI took a beating, though, which is definitely going to be really, really tough from the outset here. And I've got my combination Hagbane Tip Starfire Shafts just mowing down these Razor Dawn Hunting Packs right now. Orion himself has taken a bit of damage, but at the end of the day, he, of course, has Cloak of Isha. He's just an absolute G, so he can definitely stand and fight for some time. That being said, my Wild Riders have taken quite a bit of damage, even the Wild Hunters of Kurnos being seen off by the Pox Cohort and Amexon Barbs and everything together here. So yeah, definitely a rough situation out on that flank, but the balance of power is already tipping slightly in my favor, mostly just to NAKAI having taken all that damage already, but these Wild Riders here are going to get a nice charge on the Razor Dawn Hunting Packs and continue to get some Overwatch fire from the Starfire Shafts and Hagbane Tips. Some Hounds of Gibson going to be called down. Do a little bit of damage to that Pox cohort, and yeah, NAKAI charges in to get some damage on the Wild Riders, but they don't really want any part of that, so they're immediately going to pull away. And NAKAI is going to, well, I say pull away. What I really meant is pull away and then charge again. But NAKAI really doesn't want too much to do with that. He's going to pull out, but we do have Horn of the Wild Hunt active, so the extra charge bonus there from those Wild Riders will come through quite a bit. And yeah, Orion himself, not sure where he got off to. It looks like he's maybe running around in the back there, but one more Manticore summon just to keep things close. But yeah, the Wild Hunters of Kornos charging in one more time. Those Razordon hunting packs definitely feeling that anti-large damage. And oh man, here comes Orion himself. What are you going to do about it, Skink Bro? Oh, Skink Bro, he got a little hit in there. He's definitely spooked, though. I mean, Orion's spooky, no doubt about it. Yeah, so a little bit of a rough situation. I definitely don't think that NAKAI is going to be the go-to pick here, but again, this was the first day that myself and HDAS got the build, so we were very much still experimenting. I wouldn't take too much. We've got some better games later on, but it is interesting to see, certainly, NAKAI versus Orion, and obviously I would expect at least Orion to win that because he does have sort of an anti-large specialization, but it does sort of bring up a good comparison. Orion sort of fits into that monstrous infantry lord archetype that, you know, like Throg and NAKAI also fall into, and out of them I would say that Orion is definitely the strongest. Just his utility with his, you know, the Horn of the Wild Hunt. The fact that he has Vanguard now as well is huge because you can take some really, really awesome all Vanguard Wood Elf lists, just play super all-out aggressive. I personally love that change. I'm a big fan of Orion already, but I think it's a really, really cool change, certainly. So yeah, Orion's got Vanguard now, and he's good against NAKAI. The Razordon hunting packs, other than the MX on Barbs, again, hopefully they get buffed, but even still, I probably wouldn't take them in this matchup. Obviously, Salamanders with the fire damage might be good against trees, and you typically don't need the armor piercing against the Elves anyway. The explosion damage from the Salamanders can be quite good here. So I would probably just trade these guys out with Salamanders, honestly, and then maybe trade out NAKAI for what's his bucket, the tank, Gorok, so you don't get sniped quite as easily. And then I think this build actually has a pretty good chance against the Wood Elves. But anyway, let's go ahead and go to the next replay. Alright, so now we're back with the Greenskins going to be taking on who else but the Lizardmen. This is actually Indie Pride. He's got NAKAI the Wanderer up against Skarsnik here. Skarsnik plus an Ragnarok Queen. We've got a couple of Skulkers out to each flank. Goblins up front with the 2 Regiment of Renowned Goblins. I will point out quickly, some of you guys, hopefully all of you, have seen my Army Limits video by now and how that impacts the Greenskins. This build, it does fall into that 3 Regiments of Renown only. We've only got the Queen and the 2 frontline Gobos here, but my thinking here with bringing, I just want to specifically mention the Warlord's Boys with Armor Sundering and Immune to Psychology. Rather than bringing the Rusty Heirs, I figured it would be good to have these guys with their Immune to Psychology in the front line so they can help hold a little bit longer. And they also give you the benefit of Armor Sundering. They match up very well against Skinks, and it will even do pretty well against Saurus as well. So, the rest of the army, we've got an Orc Shaman here, some Spider Riders, yeah. For Indie Pride's Lizardmen, he's got NAKAI the Wanderer, Sacred Boxgors, and the Regiment of Renown likewise. Ancient Stegodon, Saurus Warriors with shields, Skink cohorts up front, some Feral Cold Ones out to the flanks, and Cold One Spear Riders. So yeah, you can see we're just kind of getting into range here. Indie Pride trying to decide how he wants to take this engagement exactly. The Black Orcs definitely will do quite well in most situations against pretty much all these units. The Sacred Crocsgors, when they're buffed up, will do quite well smashing Black Orcs, but Black Orcs likewise will do a lot of damage in return, so it's a pretty atrocious trade. I mean, honestly, there's only a 100-point unit difference between the 2 units, so they are pretty comparable. That is, of course, the base unit. The Regiment of Renown being significantly more expensive at 1700. The Armor Sundering, though, will help synergize quite well with the stores if they elect to go in after the Black Orcs there. But you can see out on the periphery, just kind of maneuvering some Spider Riders. If I can catch these Feral Cold Ones, that's great. If not, that's also okay. But the Orc Airboy is going to open up. Of course, we know Orc Airboys have really good AP. They were one of the best non-AP, but I think now Dwarf Crossbows and Empire Crossbows have almost the same AP values, if not just slightly less, but still. Wall being popped all across the line here, and Wind Blast just cut through quite a bit of those archers. Very good stuff. I'm going to throw a big old Brain Burst here, do some nice AoE damage, and immediately the Spider's going to come in and respond to the heavy push, just directly countering wherever the Kroxigors go, of course, with that anti-large AP poison. We've got Fists of Gork and Wa both active, so 112 melee attack, just absolutely huge here. And you can see the Stegodon in the center does become the center of the bow fire. Likewise, Skarsnik himself able to provide some poison, some anti-large AP, but you can see this unit of Black Orcs that got mashed on by all these monstrous units here is just getting absolutely crushed. More than half HP gone already. But the box scores, realizing that these Orc boys, these Air boys, the Daka squad is dangerous. NAKAI himself, he's going to get back here, get some good damage in, but what this means is they do get out of range of a lot of the Skink and Saurus infantry support here. Excuse me, like this unit of Saurus in particular really needs to come back and support this center engagement here, just to get some more bodies in. Likewise, these Cold One Spear Riders could probably pull in and assist as well, but you can see that my archers are getting ground down pretty significantly, but here come some Skulkers. We're going to pop a Smoke Bomb here to slow all these guys down, and the Skulkers will do quite well, saturating in here, getting those little armor-piercing, hits here and there. We're also going to rear charge with some Spider Riders, again, just to make sure we're piling in as many bodies, because the main weakness of the Sacred Kroxigors is, as with most monstrous infantry units, they have low model count, so they are vulnerable to getting surrounded, especially by a high model count armor-piercing unit like Nasty Skulkers. In a situation like this, you can see there's like 5 or 6 Skulkers each fighting one of the Kroxigors, and that's a bad situation for the Kroxigors, so they're going to continue piling on, try and just roll through this archer line here as some more support comes over from this side, but thankfully I've got the Spider to kind of anchor here. Although the Black Orcs are taking some damage over there, this unit's completely healthy in the front line, and already this Ancient Stegodon is taking quite a bit of damage, and the Kroxigors are also starting to run out of steam. I do think, honestly, the Ancient Kroxigors could use a hair more melee defense for the cost. They do seem to take quite a bit of damage from certain units in melee. Obviously, as I described, the Skulkers actually do match up quite well, but especially, yeah, I mean, even fighting like the Queen and stuff, they didn't necessarily do amazing here. I do have one more replay of this matchup to show you guys that turned out a little bit differently, but this is certainly, yeah, an interesting one. A lot of people, I think, were scared that the Dread Saurian is going to be too powerful in this matchup, but I think a build like this, honestly, would work just fine at taking down the Dread Saurian. Yeah, Skarsnik and the Spider together is just a lot of poison anti-large AP, and with the Black Orcs, gives you plenty of heavy frontline presence. The Skulkers saturate in AP and are, help Smoke Bomb and everything. So yeah, it's honestly... people are saying that the Greenskins are going to be bad now, but with the Regiments of Renown, I still think they'll be fine. You just have to be a lot more picky about which ones you take and, which ones you choose to leave at home. But certainly in this matchup, I would say the Queen is a must-have. That elite anti-large poison AP, especially the Spiderling summons too, which have been just running around chasing routing units pretty much the whole time. Super, super useful. So, yeah. As for what other Regiments of Renown to bring, it's really up to you. I like having the two Gobos in the front line to help hold. One of them's unbreakable, one of them's immune to psychology, one of them has armor sundering, the other has the fanatics that actually do pretty decent damage, both of which are pretty useful. And again, here in this matchup, or in any matchup where you're going to be facing a lot of big terror-causing monsters, I think it's going to be better off to have the Warlords boys rather than taking like the Rusty Airs, for example. But I do think you need one of those two, just to get that armor sundering here to synergize with your bows. But yeah, ended up taking out a win there. Very well played, Indy Pride. Yeah, it's potentially a tough matchup, I think, for the Lizardmen. Tougher than people would think, at least. But we'll see how some of the new tools play out. As far as this build goes, I would say the Feral Cold Ones are a nice idea, but I would probably cut them just for some Skink Skirmishers. Yeah, it's tough, but I mean, he got some good work in with the Ancient Stegodon and NAKAI. I just think he got a little bit aggressive there going in the back line after the archers, where he could have just continued to pick away with Wind Blast, or alternately in my view, you almost have to go with the Manticore summon here, just because the terror is so strong against the Greenskins, and a Manticore will shut down a backline of Orc Airboys very efficiently, and it's just the one spell, and then you can leave these strong frontline units saturated on top of your infantry support, and that way, you know, they're not taking as many hits. Your infantry likewise, because these guys will knock down their opponents, right? So then your Saurus can also get free hits in as well because their opponents are knocked down, right? So it just kind of synergizes a little bit better there when you're standing on top of infantry support. But still, definitely I think the Indie Pride was going in the right direction. So let's go on. I've got one more with Mr. Indie Pride here, so let's get to it. Alright, and here we are with the final game for today. I actually decided I'm going to split these up into 5 battle groupings so I can post them separately. That way you don't have to watch it quite all at once, but still going to be going through all these battles. This time we've got Indie Pride's Golden Order. So this is actually Balthazar Gelt's unique faction. Quite an interesting mustard color scheme here, going up against the Warriors of Chaos. So let's take a look at the builds here. Balthazar leading the way. We've got some Demigryph Knights here, the Black Legion Hellblaster Volley Gun, some Pistoliers and Empire Knights, Demigryph Knights, yep, more Demigryph Knights, some Great Swords and Swordsmen through the center. Is that the... Nope, no Sigmar Sons, just more Empire Knights out on the flanks. For myself, I've got some Marauder Horsemen, requisite Feral Manticore, some Marauders up front, second line of Chaos Warriors, and one Chosen, plus the Mirror Guard. Of course, I've also got the Weird Spawn as well, one of my favorites in this matchup, that Armor Sundering, really nice against Empire Heavy Cav. And speaking of Armor Sundering, we've got Big Bird himself. So, Big Bird did get a bit of a nerf. 10% missile resistance nerf, down from 60% to 50%, which is totally fine. Still going to be an incredibly strong character and probably going to be the most competitive in a number of matchups, but still, we're going to be pushing through here with some Marauder Horsemen. We do discover those Empire Knights and quickly pull back. Meanwhile, Sarthrel just running some harassment with the silly yellow pajamas here of the Golden Order. I actually do quite like the color scheme. I do just wish that was a slightly darker shade of yellow. It doesn't exactly look like gold to me, but for the Demigryph Knights, it does look really good, I think. That all gold, man, that just looks like pure money right there. I love the demis in the color scheme. Black Legion opening up, getting some good damage in. You can see here we're going to be pushing up all across the line here. Obviously, Great Swords will match up quite well here, and I do want to try and keep demis away from my Weird Spawn if I can. You know, the Armor Sundering will be nice, but obviously the Anti-Large not going to be great for me. But we did throw an Overcast Plague of Rust here for these Demigryph Knights. Pulled back. Unfortunately for me, but they did take some javelins earlier on. Over here we're going to be getting a nice engagement underway, a big old transmutation of lead in the front line to nerf the combat stats of these Great Swords, Spearmen, the Demigryph Knights, everything else that comes in here, but the Hell on Wheels is definitely a problem, getting some really nice Overwatch fire right now into this flank here. You can see me dropping some Searing Doom as I'm trying to get some of the units over on this flank terrified away. You can see the Empire Knights and other units fleeing now. And those bombardment spells actually do a lot of damage. However, that does open me up to get absolutely shredded by that Hellblaster volley gun up on the high ground there. So, yeah, pretty good stuff so far. That being said, my Javs are in the back to be able to harass a little bit there. Chaos Warriors winning out against Swordsmen in the front line, but these Great Swords are also doing quite well there. Chosen, not quite engaged, but just sort of sitting back, letting the Great Swords get worn down by the Marauders a little bit, but got a nice break going on this side. Over here, though, things are not going quite as well. The Weird Spawn have taken a lot of damage, and we have not been able to get through the center pocket of Great Swords, Demigryph Knights, and more here, but another Overcast, Plague of Rust here, and Big Bird himself going to charge straight into the demis. It is pretty risky to do this, but, I mean, Big Bird's a pretty powerful combat character in his own right. Lots of weapon strength, especially with that metal shifting going off, and, you know, doesn't necessarily need the AP to get through when the armor's down to 35 between those two effects, right? So that's kind of what we're going for here. Likewise, the Chosen will rear charge now as well, and they have heavy weapon strength. The lack of AP, again, not going to be an issue here because of those Armor Sundering effects. So, confirmed, Armor Sundering still very viable against the Empire. That being said, you can see the balance of power is starting to become pretty even here, as a lot of these Chaos Warriors are getting worn down. Marauders not really holding up in this fight at all. Mostly just Chaos Warriors still holding at this point. Thankfully for me, I do still have the Feral Manticore. He's mostly just been chasing Balthazar around for the most part. I haven't really got a lot of value, but now in this late game, Because he's still relatively healthy, I can kind of drop down and get some nice terror routes here, keep various units zoned out, and finally we're getting back and getting on to the Hell on Wheels, which so far has gotten some really good damage done. You can see the demis are going to try and come screen through here, though, and all 3 unit models still online critically, so maybe they can get some good work done, but it does look like a big old transmutation of lead on the Chaos side here. And Balthazar has been using most of his for Final Transmutation. In fact, that is the only spell that Balthazar brought there. So yeah, it's a nice little metal duel between 2 Lore of Metal casters and very sort of different philosophies here. Balthazar very much going for the armor-piercing units with direct damage from himself, while Sarthrel going for the opposite with purely non-armor-piercing units and just using the, Plague of Rust and other buff and debuff effects. So yeah, at this point you can see that the Knights not really wanting to engage this big kind of death ball. There are still 3 Chaos spawn here. 3 Weird spawn is enough to apply that armor sundering, so even though they're very low, it's a good situation for me. Likewise, out here on the periphery, you can see Swordsmen are routing the Black Lions here, getting chased off. A little bit unfortunate, but it is what it is. There are still some great swords here fighting. Yeah, nice Plague of Rust here, yep. Or Final Transmutation, actually, from Balthazar. This actually will probably finish off those Weird spawn, maybe? Not quite. It does look like, unfortunately, it was cast on maybe the Chosen there. So because the rest of these single entities, or low model count units, I guess, ran out of that area of effect, they, yeah, they didn't get hit by it too hard. Sarthrel, though, makes a risky dive here going after these Demigryph Knights. They do have Plague of Rust active, but I don't really have all the support I need in the area. Balthazar dives down to try and get a finishing blow here, but thankfully here comes the Manticore and the Mirror Guard here to respond. It is enough to get a little bit of a terror route here going, and the Empire Knights are routed off. Likewise, Balthazar a little bit in a dangerous situation, but that gooning of Sarthrel just about brought the balance of power back, and honestly, if Indy Pride could finish off Sarthrel here, he could probably get some rallying units, like he's got some units over here. Great Swords getting an okay engagement against Chaos Warriors. Even though they are quite tattered, they should still be able to get a little bit of damage in. Maybe not. Those Chaos Warriors do have really good melee defense, and it looks like they're not taking many hits at all. So yeah, a little bit of a rough situation there. These great swords also getting collapsed, and as more and more of the elite infantry for the Empire just kind of gets picked off on the periphery, he will more and more have the balance of power turn against him, but still, very close battle. You can see my infantry corps, even the Chosen and the Mirror Guard, both very tattered. The rest of the unit's pretty much completely gone here, but we'll see. The Manticore is chasing Balthazar. He's going to try and get away here and find some other support. Maybe if they were to, rally these mobile troops together, come up and around and try and reunify with these great swords, but instead Indy's just going to go all in to try and finish off Sarthrel right now. I definitely understand what he was going for here, just going for the win. And he does actually finish off Sarthrel. Unfortunately, he's taken quite a bit of damage in this pocket as well. The Manticore comes back up over and just immediately starts eating Balthazar's face. And so despite the fact that he did finish off, the big bird there, just running out of, leadership everywhere, running out of HP, Balthazar himself took a big hit, and those great swords, unsupported, did end up losing out to the superior numbers of the Chaos Warriors there. So a little bit of a rough situation, but still ended up being a very, very close battle. As for, how things could have turned out differently, personally, I think, obviously Final Transmutation is going to be pretty strong, but I think with Balthazar, you're probably better off going in a little bit of a different direction and trying to use his spells for different things. I mean, certainly at least having Final Transmutation, if there is a big blob of, Shaggoths and especially monstrous infantry, stuff like the Weird spawn is going to be really good for that. But I think in this matchup, there are some other things you can do. Transmutation of Lead in particular, the spell that I had that gives negative melee attack, is really strong in this matchup for Balthazar because Chaos units tend to have really high melee attack. If you can negate that, then your own units obviously will be taking less hits, and you can kind of help sustain in that way. Likewise, the Searing Doom is really good against Chaos Cav. You can throw it against Marauders, whatever. So personally, I like going for the support route with Lore of Metal rather than the direct damage. But certainly was a fun battle. I mean, obviously, the Black Lions, risky pick, and ended up being a little bit rough here just because I had so many Marauders. They were able to keep it harassed. But still, 63 kills, not bad. 134 there for the Great Swords, 57 and an XP Chevron for these Demigryph Knights, and 71 kills for Balthazar Melt with the the final transmutation there. Pretty impressive stuff, honestly. For myself, Big Bird obviously with 61 here, 114 on these Chaos Warriors. The Chosen actually got beat up pretty bad. Normally they do quite a bit of heavy lifting, but 56 kills on these Marauder Horsemen is actually pretty nice. 70 kills on the Weird Spawn as well. It's excellent. 34 and an XP Chevron for the Manticore. It was also pretty key in helping chase down the Hellblaster there. So yeah, a little bit of an interesting one. I think, yeah, it's tough to say. I do think that with Balthazar, because he gives you a Lord level caster, that opens up 2 hero slots. And because the Empire has such powerful hero choices now, you're probably going to want to fill both of those, either with Witch Hunters or Warrior Priests, both. Or I guess you could do one and the other. Actually, I will say the Witch Hunter's accusation does synergize quite well with Balthazar's Plague of Rust. You can do similar things to what I did here, stacking the Weird Spawn with Sarthrael in stacking those 2 effects, and then, for example, using Pistoliers to then just tear apart a big armored monster. Can work pretty well, but anyway, that's going to be it for today. Hopefully you guys enjoyed these 5 replays. We're going to be getting started with 5 more very shortly, so stay tuned for more. If you do like this sort of content, be sure to like, subscribe, hit that bell notification button, so every time I upload a new video, you'll be notified. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you next time.